Turn Dipe steps into Endless Gate's heart, sensing shimmering void filled with galaxies swirling endlessly. Light emanates from nowhere. Stars act like countless eyes observing their every cautious movement here. Beneath their feet, glass-like surface reflects distorted images of souls, twisting past memories revealed. Sword tightly gripped, Turn Dipe feels invisible pressure pressing from all directions, crushing his spirit. LCCIN whispers softly, warning of strange energy currents surrounding their fragile bodies and minds. Kwang Nugent spreads silver wings, slicing space into shimmering threads like infinite blades reflecting starlight. LC Ha kneels, sensing whispers rising from floor like cries from forgotten lifetimes trapped. Turn Dipe hears voices inside his mind, blending past, present, and future into chorus. A colossal light pillar erupts from center, covered with countless ancient symbols dancing fiercely. Voice echoes, "Welcome to Light Abyss, where illusions die and only truth remains eternal." Before them a bottomless abyss swirls with memories, souls, and fragments of forgotten universes. LCCI clutches chest, feeling her memories drawn out by unseen abyssal tendrils relentlessly. Kwang Nugent warns them not to stare into the abyss, but pull already begun. Ghostly images of their own past selves rise above abyss, whispering regrets and fears. Darkness forms from swirling void, countless eyes open inside mist, staring at heroes coldly. "I am all failures you left behind," darkness says, echoing with twisted resonance. Turn Dipe lifts sword, declaring he will cut through illusions, no matter their origin. Tentacles of black light lash out, shredding stars, breaking silver arrows into useless dust. LCCIN forms crystal barrier, but dark tendrils crack it like fragile ice shards. Kwang Nugent fires endless silver arrows, yet each vanishes into void like feathers. Darkness laughs. "You cannot escape your shadow. I am your truest reflection." Turn Dipe unleashes Heartwish sword beam, slicing darkness but feeling pain deep within. Each strike cuts into his own memories, testing courage and acceptance of past mistakes. The darkness splits, creating thousands of clones whispering doubts into his ears. LCC Ha chants protective mantra, trying to anchor teams' minds against abyssal invasion. Memories of childhood flash before Turn Dipe, old failures resurfacing like poisonous tides. Sword trembles in his hand but his heart steadies, recalling lessons learned painfully. Darkness says, "You cannot kill me, because I am you, eternal shadow." Turn Dipe closes eyes, recalling moment he embraced his inner child and forgave himself. Instead of striking, he lowers blade, opens arms towards swirling mass of darkness. Light erupts from his chest, weaving through sword, enveloping shadow in blazing radiance. "I accept all past and future," he whispers. "I no longer fear you." Darkness screams, dissolving into countless lights raining down the abyss like shattered stars. Pillar of light trembles, opening luminous staircase, spiraling upwards toward celestial palace above. LCCIN breathes heavily, eyes wet with tears, seeing impossible victory achieved by him. Kwang Nugent bows slightly, admiration replacing doubt he once carried toward the young swordsman. LCC Ha smiles faintly, whispering ancient prophecy coming true before their very eyes. Turn Dipe stands taller, feeling unprecedented serenity flooding veins replacing constant inner conflict. Sword glows softer, warmth spreading from blade into his palm like living companion guiding. They step onto staircase of light, each step shimmering with ancient runes awakening. Beneath them, abyss closes slowly, sealing away shadows they once fought bravely. Above, palace made of stars floats, surrounded by gigantic rings of cosmic energy. LCCIN touches glowing symbols on steps, feeling knowledge rushing into her consciousness. Kwang Nugent senses wings strengthening, feathers turning brighter than moonlight in cosmic night. LC Ha's staff resonates, summoning echoes of forgotten guardians blessing their journey forward. Turn Dipe looks upward, determination blazing like twin suns within his focused eyes. Stairway vibrates under their weight, testing purity of heart with every ascending stride. They feel time dissolve, seconds stretching into eons under celestial pressure surrounding them. Ghostly figures of former cultivators appear, nodding in silent respect as heroes ascend. Sword sings, harmonizing with cosmic hum, forming bridge between mortal and immortal realms. LCCIN steadies her breathing, resisting pressure crushing bones, focusing on guiding light. Kwang Nugent shields others with wings, deflecting invisible blasts of compressed starlight energy. LCC Ha channels healing aura, soothing wounds etched by earlier abyssal confrontation. Turn Dipe leads without hesitation, footsteps echoing through infinite stairwell toward destiny above. Palace grows clearer, shimmering towers carved from constellations rising into radiant arches. Their reflections on glass steps now show evolved selves, stronger, freer, unbound by past. A second door appears ahead, larger, glowing like sun at midnight sky. Cosmic music swells, vibrating within their bones, reshaping souls into higher resonance. LCC Ian whispers prophecy lines learned from ancient scroll hidden in her clan. Kwang Nujin senses approaching guardians behind door, preparing silver arrows with divine runes. LCC Ha murmurs, beyond this lies Heaven Abyss Gate, ultimate test for immortality. Turn Dipe tightens grip on sword, feeling pulse of universe aligning with his heart. Each step closer intensifies aura, making air thick with raw creation energy. Stairway begins to glow golden, hinting at final thresholds nearing completion ahead. Memories of countless battles flash like meteor shower across their unified minds. They feel ancestors' blessings whisper encouragement into their ears, strengthening unshakable resolve. Palace doors ripple like water, symbols rearranging, testing sincerity of approaching souls carefully. LCC Yen's eyes blaze blue fire, unlocking latent heritage of her celestial bloodline. Kwang Nuyen's wings release halo arcs, anchoring path for companions behind firmly. LCC Ha lifts staff high, summoning barrier of moonlight protecting group from final blast. Turn Dipe raises sword overhead, merging personal aura with stairway's cosmic essence completely. The sword transforms into beam of living light, bridging heaven and abyssal memory. Doors resonate with his heartbeat, each pulse unlocking layer of ancient seals. LCC Ian channels energy into door, weaving harmony between groups, spirits, and gate. Kwang Nugent plants arrow into step, marking path in case collapse begins. LC Ha chants, aligning celestial frequencies so door responds to unified intention. Suddenly vast shadow reappears faintly, remnant echo of abyss testing their unity. Turn Dipe without fear bows head, acknowledging shadow as last piece of himself. Shadow fades smiling, merging into sword completely, completing circle of self-acceptance. Finally, door brightens, symbols glow crimson then pure white, announcing readiness to open soon. LCC Yen's tears fall, sensing they crossed threshold of no return permanently. Kwang Nugent grips bow tightly, accepting fate, whatever lies beyond sacred door. LCC Ha steadies breathing, staff planted, eyes closing in deep meditation moment. Turn Dipe smiles faintly, whispering vow to protect companions beyond even immortality. Stairway now vanishes behind them, isolating heroes before enormous glowing door alone. Cosmic silence descends, only heartbeat of four travelers echoing through infinite void. Door speaks silently, present your truth and step beyond mortal limitations forever. Turn Dipe presses palm to door, sword alongside, merging intent into pure resonance. Light pours from symbols into his veins, rewriting destiny, connecting mortal and divine. LCC Ian, Kwang Nugent, LCC Ha join hands, their energies converging into single beam. Gate vibrates like thunder, stars shifting positions, responding to their combined courage. Cosmic wind rises, tearing robes but lifting their spirits even higher. Palace trembles, constellations aligning into dragon-shaped pattern above glowing gate. Sword sings final chord, echoing memory of countless masters who walked path before. Door edges crack open slightly, revealing glimpse of infinite sky beyond. Pressure explodes outward, forcing them to brace against roaring currents of creation. Turn Dipe shouts command, focusing will to stabilize group as threshold nears breaking. All for glow with new radiance, shedding last remnants of mortal hesitation. Door fully opens, light engulfing them, pulling heroes toward ultimate celestial trial. Chapter ends with Turn Dipe and companions stepping into Heaven Abyss Gate, ready beyond fear. Tran Deep steps into the blinding light of Heaven's Gate, feeling its ancient power surge within. LCC Ian follows cautiously, sensing invisible threads of destiny weaving around her trembling hands and soul. Kwang Nugent spreads silver wings, stabilizing the group amid swirling cosmic winds and radiant celestial energy. LCC Ha grips her staff tightly, eyes calm as timeless wisdom reflects in her serene face. The gate shatters like a glass mirror, releasing waves of primordial energy flowing endlessly forward. A vast ocean of light engulfs them, erasing gravity, sound, and every familiar trace of reality. Threads of starlight curl around Tran Deep like ancient dragons, whispering long-forgotten cosmic secrets aloud. Inside his mind, echoes of countless swordsingers resound, guiding his steps toward destiny's heart. LCCIN touches a floating light, feeling spirits of bygone cultivators pass softly through her. Kwang Nuyen's feathers emit blue sparks, each one stabilizing dimensional turbulence, threatening to tear them apart. LC Ha's staff glows pale, anchoring their souls like moonlight on a quiet river. Stars swirl like suspended lanterns, orbiting a brilliant core that pulses like a living heart. Underfoot, crystallized light ripples like water, each step echoing across 10,000 silent miles. Voices of past warriors whisper from the stars, urging courage and clarity amid overwhelming power. Suddenly a colossal beast forms, half dragon, half phoenix, eyes twin black suns burning fiercely. You wish to transcend heaven's law. It roars, shaking stars with its thunderous voice. Black mist rises, becoming phantoms of their fears, regrets, and forgotten moments of weakness combined. Tran Deep faces his younger self, drenched in rain, clutching a broken sword of despair. You abandoned me, the phantom says, eyes burning with endless sorrow and deep resentment. Tran Deep steps closer, embracing the phantom, whispering forgiveness and acceptance into its trembling form. The shadow dissolves into bright fragments, merging back into Tran Deep's strengthened soul completely. LCCIN sees her father's cold gaze, memories of scorn cutting deeper than any blade. She kneels, tears falling, forgiving both him and herself for years of hidden shame. The illusion shatters, her aura flaring with new radiance, brighter than any previous light. Kwang Nujen faces the betrayer of his clan, wings torn and honor left to rot. He exhales, accepting pain and loss, letting it fade like a storm passing gently. Silver feathers regrow stronger, his wings unfolding with new power and graceful resilience combined. LCC beholds countless fallen students, her lifelong guilt echoing like drums in darkness. I tried my best, she murmurs, releasing their spirits with a calm smile. Her staff erupts in moonlight, scattering phantoms like petals blown by autumn wind. They advance toward the center, where a lotus of 1,000 petals awaits silently. Each petal holds a universe, spinning gently with unseen rhythms of cosmic order. At its heart stands a sword, glowing white, named Heavenly Spirit Blade beyond mortal comprehension. Only the self-aware may touch me, the blade whispers, its voice resonating like bells. Tran Deep grasps the hilt, energy draining, body trembling under an ocean of cosmic pressure. LCCIN and Kwang Nujen erect barriers, feeding their power to support Tran Deep fully. LCC anchors their souls, chanting ancient runes echoing before creation's first dawn. Light explodes, revealing the history of countless worlds, rise and fall, of civilizations. Images cut through their minds like blades, testing willpower, clarity, and boundless endurance fiercely. Tran Deep stands firm, his spirit enduring storms of visions and endless torrents of pain. Suddenly, the light softens. He holds the Heavenly Spirit Blade as if it were air. Power floods his veins, half mortal, half celestial, a bridge between heaven and all. LCCIN gazes in awe, sensing a new destiny crystallizing around Tran Deep's transformed soul. Kwang Nujen nods silently, acknowledging leadership of someone beyond the old paths of cultivation. LCC whispers warnings. From now on, there is no road back to safety. Tran Deep answers quietly, I know, but this is the path I've chosen forever. The 1,000-petal lotus folds inward, becoming a massive door carved with sword-shaped glyphs. Light bridges stretch ahead, linking Heaven's Gate to a forbidden realm beyond Heaven's law. Air shifts, carrying scents of sand, storms, and electric thunder from a purple sky. Ground gleams with metal and stone, alien yet strangely resonant with their internal energies. LCCIN whispers, is this truly outside the rule of heaven? With trembling voice, Kwang Nujen tests flight, but gravity drags his wings downward with oppressive force. LC strikes the ground, echoes rolling across an infinite metallic landscape beyond sight. Tran Deep lifts his eyes, seeing towers like spears piercing the clouds of amethyst. Energy beings observe from above, their forms shifting between geometry and phantom figures silently. Prove yourselves, a deep voice commands, echoing like thunder in their chests forever. Purple beams descend, shaping into dozens of translucent warriors with godlike bearing intimidatingly. Each carries ancient weapons pulsing with power, forged before stars first burned brightly. Tran Deep steadies his stance, Heavenly Spirit Blade humming like a caged dragon inside. LCCIN and Kwang Nujen flank him, forming an unspoken triangular formation, instinctively. LCC plants her staff, weaving protective runes to shield them from imminent attacks. The warriors advance, footsteps shaking the metallic plane like an approaching planetary quake. Tran Deep senses every movement, his perception expanded across hundreds of invisible energy layers. His blade glows brighter, splitting illusions from reality as cosmic winds circle inward. "We've come this far. Let's show them our strength," he declares with burning determination. Lightning surges around his body, merging with sword energy and rising like a storm. LCC, Een, summons shimmering lotus shields, petals spinning to deflect incoming spears rapidly. Kwang Nuyan's wings release, cutting gales, slicing energy constructs into fragments, scattering apart. LC Ha channels moonlight through her staff, healing wounds and reinforcing protective barriers. Strong, the godlike warriors counterattack, summoning chains of light and spears of shadow at once. Tran Deep's sword arcs, cutting a path through darkness, dissolving 3 phantoms immediately. LCC Ian follows with a flurry of strikes, her movements like flowing river and wind. Kwang Nujan dives, smashing opponents with gale force wings, creating shockwaves, resonating deep. LC Ha chants, binding half the army in silver runes, slowing their advance. The metallic ground splits, revealing glowing veins of energy feeding the warriors' bodies entirely. Tran Deep channels his inner cosmos, fusing mortal and celestial force into one strike. Energy blasts outward, scattering dozens of figures into particles returning to purple sky. LCC Een gasps, sensing the enormous strain burning through Tran Deep's meridians violently. "Hold steady," he says. "Our unity is the only key to survive here." Kwang Nujan projects a barrier of wind, deflecting a rain of energy arrows quickly. LCC Ha summons a tidal wave of moonlight, purging poison from their aura cleanly. The warriors regroup, forming a single massive entity with 6 arms and a crown. Its roar shakes towers in the distance, bringing down fragments of metallic sky overhead. Tran Deep leaps upward, blade trailing starlight like a comet tearing across night. LCC Ian ignites her lotus shields, converting them into blazing spears, striking the giant. Kwang Nujan dives again, his wings cutting through chains of light binding their movement. LCC Ha slams her staff, summoning a celestial bell's sound to stun the foe. The giant stumbles, cracks spreading across its body like shattered glass glowing crimson. "Now!" Tran Deep shouts, gathering every last drop of his power into the blade. A brilliant strike descends, splitting the giant from crown to feet into blazing fragments. The battlefield quiets, purple light dispersing, revealing only trembling metallic ground underfoot. LCC Ian collapses to one knee, breathing hard but smiling with fierce relief inside. Kwang Nujan folds wings slowly, feathers flickering from exhaustion yet still shimmering faintly. LC Ha leans on her staff, eyes closed, murmuring ancient prayers of gratitude quietly. Tran Deep lowers his sword, feeling new power within but also heavier responsibilities looming ahead. The sky above them ripples, showing glimpses of an even higher realm waiting beyond. A soft voice whispers from the sword. "This is only the beginning of eternity." LCC Ein looks up, eyes sparkling. "We've stepped into legend itself now." Kwang Nujan nods. "Our journey has transformed us forever. No return to old selves." Tran Deep gazes toward the endless purple horizon, determined to walk forward into destiny. Tran Deep stands silently, sword glowing purple, feeling destiny calling him beyond mortal comprehension. The shattered sky mirrors his heart, torn between duty and the unknown celestial path ahead. LCC Een steps beside him, eyes shimmering, whispering about the final gate awaiting them. Kwang Nuyen spreads his wings, sensing divine currents stronger than any storm they faced before. LCC Ha grips his staff tightly, ancient runes glowing as fear mixes with determination. Before them floats a crystal stairway spiraling into darkness, shimmering like frozen lightning. Tran Deep breathes deeply, recalling every challenge, forging his will like tempered steel. The stairway vibrates with cosmic songs, resonating with their combined spiritual energy. 4 figures ascend together, their steps synchronized, echoing across endless void. A circular platform emerges, columns of light forming an eternal hall of trials. Symbols carved into pillars shift endlessly, revealing forgotten histories of ancient sword-bearers. Tran Deep touches a glyph, sensing memories of warriors who failed before him. A whisper in the air warns, "Only unity and true heart shall open the path." LCC Yen's aura merges with starlight, revealing her inner strength and compassion. Kwang Nuyen channels cosmic winds, wings unfolding like silver storms embracing infinity. LC Ha summons protective bells, their chimes echoing across dimensions. Suddenly, a being of pure light forms, shaped like a colossal sword deity. Its voice thunders, "Prove your sword heart, or be erased forever from existence." Thousands of light blades swirl, each reflecting deepest fears and desires of the challengers. Tran Deep sees his childhood self, trembling yet burning with endless resolve. He lowers his blade, embracing the image instead of striking it. The phantom dissolves into motes of power merging with his spirit. LCCIN faces visions of rejection, standing firm with tears of silent courage. Kwang Nuyen confronts ancestral shame, choosing acceptance over anger and hatred. LC Ha endures visions of lost disciples, forgiving himself and moving forward. Light blades lose hostility, turning into streams of knowledge, feeding their souls. The sword deity nods, shifting the trial into pure elemental combat. For elemental swords arise, wind, fire, water, thunder, spinning at impossible speed. Tran Deep channels dual sun-moon force, his blade striking radiant arcs of power. Kwang Nuyen dives through fire and wind, absorbing flames into cyclones of light. LCC In shapes lotus shields, dissolving water torrents into harmless mist. LCC Ha rings lunar bells, diffusing thunder into shimmering ripples. Elemental swords clash, sending shockwaves across the platform like tidal stars. The warriors sweat, yet feel newfound strength growing from each impact. Tran Deep senses universal rhythm within each swing of his sword. LCCIN smiles faintly, recognizing harmony inside chaos itself. Kwang Nuyen roars, wings vibrating as cosmic storms obey his will. LCC Ha chants mantras, weaving protective geometry beneath their feet. Elemental swords finally shatter, releasing showers of multicolored sparks. Sword deity announces the final trial. Unify your minds or perish. A glowing ring envelops them, drawing their consciousness into a single nexus. Tran Deep feels every thought of his companions, raw and unhidden. He opens his heart, sharing pain, dreams, and hope without restraint. LCCN follows, shedding fear to embrace full connection. Kwang Nuyen merges his stormy soul, creating balance within their shared core. LCC Ha releases guilt, anchoring collective will like a mountain root. Together they form a colossal cosmic sword spanning across galaxies. Tran Deep stands at the tip, channeling focus into a decisive strike. The sword swings, cutting through illusions, striking directly at the deity's essence. Light explodes, not in destruction but in transcendent birth of unity. The deity smiles, dissolving into a million fragments feeding the colossal sword. Platform trembles, columns crumbling into dust, revealing starlit corridor beyond. A rainbow bridge unfurls, stretching across cosmic emptiness, toward unknown realms. Tran Deep exhales, feeling lighter yet burdened with greater responsibility. LCCIN touches his shoulder, warmth flowing like sunrise after endless night. Kwang Nuyen folds his wings, silver feathers drifting into void as blessings. LC Ha's staff hums, echoing hidden chants of ancient sect guardians. They step onto the rainbow bridge, each footfall igniting stardust. Stars below flicker, acknowledging new travelers ascending to outer heavens. The air tastes pure, cleansing every scar from their spiritual bodies. A voice greets them, "Welcome, transcenders of the old heavenly path." Tran Deep does not answer, holding his sword with renewed vigilance. His eyes scan infinite sky, recognizing this as the true beginning. LCCIN smiles softly, sensing vast opportunities beyond comprehension. Kwang Nuyen steadies himself, wings trembling under unknown cosmic winds. LCC Ha chants a protective mantra, weaving energy nets invisible to sight. Ahead appears a city of light, towers swirling like frozen nebulae. Tran Deep's heart beats faster, feeling destiny pulling stronger than ever. Their combined auras shimmer, forming protective halos around their bodies. Time loses meaning. Only will and path remain real. A corridor of crystal spheres appears, mapping countless worlds they might visit. Tran Deep touches a sphere, sensing histories of long-fallen civilizations. LCCI channels her energy, strengthening bridge stability. Kwang Nuyen whispers ancient vows, promising never to falter. LC Ha's bells ring once, clearing residual illusions. Suddenly, cosmic beasts of shadow emerge, testing their vigilance. Tran Deep's sword arcs, slicing darkness into harmless shards. LCCEIN releases healing waves, restoring cosmic bridge integrity. Kwang Nuyen summons Silver Cyclone, scattering beasts into stellar dust. LC Ha binds remaining shadows within luminous chains. Bridge steadies again, glowing brighter with their unity. Stars hum melodies of forgotten guardians welcoming them. Tran Deep feels surge of inspiration, forging new techniques in his mind. LCC Ian grasps his hand, sharing silent confidence. Kwang Nuyen expands wings, embracing cosmic winds like home skies. LCC Ha raises staff, signaling readiness for next challenge. Ahead looms a gateway of black light rimmed with golden runes. Tran Deep recognizes symbols, scripts of transcendent trials older than time. LCCE enchants softly, unlocking hidden harmonies in Gateway's pulse. Kwang Nuyen adds wind rhythm, shaping a collective resonance key. LC Ha strikes his staff, sending vibrations sealing their alignment. Gateway opens slowly, revealing corridor of swirling galaxies. Tran Deep leads, sword before him, eyes unwavering. LCCEIN follows, robes trailing comet-like streaks of light. Kwang Nuyen glides behind, wings scattering star fragments. LCC Ha closes formation, staff glowing like a moon pillar. Corridor pulses with testing waves, but they hold formation. A final whisper echoes. Only those united shall reach Eternal City. Tran Deep steps forward, heart steady, destiny blazing in his eyes. Together they walk into the unknown, cosmic sword spirit guiding their path beyond heavens. Tran Deep and companions step through swirling gate into Eternal City shining with living crystalline light. Streets pulse with ancient energy, weaving luminous symbols across endless paths like veins of stars. Tran Deep holds sword steady, feeling pulse of forgotten civilizations echoing deep inside soul. LCCIN whispers warnings about hidden trials awaiting cultivators daring to enter legendary city. Kwang Nuyen spreads silver wings, sensing sharp currents of pressure bending unseen cosmic rules. LC Ha taps, staff lightly, awakening dormant runes beneath their feet with resonant tones. The group advances slowly, eyes scanning illusions forming from shimmering air and lost memories. Tran Deep recalls youthful struggles, contrasting humble beginnings with present towering cultivation power. LCCEN points at colossal floating monolith covered in ancient carvings glowing faintly gold. Tran Deep reaches out, palm trembling as glyphs flare alive, projecting cascading visions around. Visions show countless cultivators rising, falling, striving toward immortality within infinite cycles. A phrase appears, abandon everything to lift the sword beyond heaven. Kwang Nuyen exhales slowly, recognizing nature of Eternal City as spiritual crucible of truths. LC Ha kneels, pressing palm into ground, linking staff to shimmering ley lines below. Tran Deep centers breathing, drawing celestial energy upward through channels refined by trials. Air thickens as city tests their intentions, weaving emotional illusions to break minds. Tran Deep steps forward, slicing illusions with radiant swordlight, revealing hidden corridors. LCCEN summons Lotus Shield protecting group from surging waves of psychic backlash. Kwang Nuyen conjures stellar vortex absorbing fragments of attacking mental constructs. LCC Ha chants, old mantra, stabilizing energies swirling violently around their bodies. The corridor opens into massive plaza paved with translucent hexagonal tiles. A towering statue rises, representing nameless guardian of Eternal City's sacred knowledge. Tran Deep bows slightly, feeling presence older than galaxies inside this monumental form. Suddenly, statue's eyes ignite, transforming plaza into trial ground of soul illusions. Waves of shadow echo figures from Tran Deep's past. Enemies, mentors, lost friends. Each apparition strikes with emotional blades cutting deeper than any physical wound. Tran Deep resists by embracing memories, transmuting pain into luminous calm resolve. Sword hums, changing tone from battle cry to steady beacon of transcendence. LCCEIN focuses breath, amplifying Tran Deep's aura with gentle supportive energy. Kwang Nuyen dives through shadows, tearing them apart with arcs of stellar wind. LCC Ha strikes ground, releasing shockwave of resonant bells, dissolving illusory chains. Guardian's form multiplies into thousand silhouettes, circling them with crushing pressure. Tran Deep realizes brute force will never prevail against own mirrored fears. He lowers sword, closes eyes, surrendering to silence at Eternal City's core. Shadows hesitate, sensing shift within cultivator's heart toward total acceptance. Golden light erupts from his chest, blending with city's radiant streams. Thousand silhouettes collapse inward, merging as shimmering particles absorbed by Tran Deep. Guardian kneels, acknowledging new harmony inside Challenger's spirit and blade. Turn Dipe ascends momentarily, floating above Plaza wrapped in spiraling silver threads. LCCEIN smiles softly, witnessing friend's transformation beyond previous cultivation limits. Kwang Nugent steadies stance, feeling energy calm but infinitely deeper around them. LCC Ha bows head, staff glowing brighter as new runes appear spontaneously. Turn Dipe opens eyes, irises reflecting galaxies like twin vortexes of destiny. Sword transforms, edge now flowing like liquid, light shifting with heartbeat rhythm. The Eternal City whispers forgotten chants, echoing inside every cell of Cultivator's body. Turn Dipe feels boundless clarity, understanding sword beyond heaven as path of integration. LCCIN approaches, laying hand on his shoulder, linking energies together. Kwang Nugent nods approval, acknowledging successful passage of first spiritual gate. LCC Ha murmurs prophecy, sensing doors ahead opening into deeper mysteries. A new portal materializes, framed by swirling emerald energy and shimmering symbols. Air vibrates with chorus of 1,000 unseen swords singing in resonance. Turn Dipe steps toward portal, sensing calm invitation rather than hostile challenge. LCCEIN glances back at fading plaza, memories dissolving into luminous mist. Kwang Nugent folds wings, focusing essence to protect group during transition. LCC Ha traces circle with staff, creating buffer zone from collapsing illusions. Portal's center spins faster, showing glimpse of starfields and endless stairways. Turn Dipe inhales deeply, anchoring spirit to sword before crossing unknown. His companions align energies, forming unified aura surrounding their forms. Eternal City's voice whispers, only true harmony can proceed beyond second gate. Ground beneath shakes, releasing cascade of sparkling dust like celestial rain. Turn Dipe lifts, sword high, channeling fresh power gained from inner reconciliation. LCCIN stabilizes flow with graceful gestures weaving lotus-shaped seals. Kwang Nugent chants, star incantation, forging protective shield from cosmic threads. LCHA's staff ignites, marking safe passage route through twisting gate currents. The emerald portal brightens, revealing shifting patterns resembling ancient dragon scales. Turn Dipe steps first, body becoming beam of white gold light entering portal. LCCEIN follows close, eyes closed, trusting leader's new transcendent path. Kwang Nugent launches upward, wings folded, diving into vortex behind. LCC Ha closes formation, staff pointing backward, sealing portal from collapse. Inside gateway, time distorts, stretching moments into endless corridors of starlight. Turn Dipe senses, multiple futures branching like rivers around his consciousness. LCCIN merges breathing rhythm with ambient flow, stabilizing her mind's anchor. Kwang Nugent channels stellar essence, creating small orbs guiding their movement. LC Ha observes glyphs along tunnel walls, deciphering forgotten messages aloud. Tunnel widens into chamber containing suspended crystal spheres pulsing like hearts. Turn Dipe touches one sphere, receiving flood of ancient sword techniques and insights. LCCE glimpses origins of her protective art rooted in Eternal City's archives. Kwang Nugent finds traces of his clan's celestial heritage embedded within data. LC Ha learns new harmonic spells resonating with City's omnipresent song. All for exchange silent looks, realizing this is inheritance of countless civilizations. Chamber begins collapsing as knowledge transfer ends, pulling energy back inward. Turn Dipe summons stabilizing array beneath feet, holding chamber structure longer. LCCIN conjures lotus mirrors deflecting imploding fragments away from group. Kwang Nugent strengthens barrier, weaving cosmic threads into shield dome. LCC Ha strikes staff, activating emergency escape rune inscribed earlier. A smaller exit portal forms, aligned with Eternal City's second corridor. Turn Dipe guides team through, holding sword upright as beacon of direction. LCCEIN maintains protective seals, preventing dimensional fractures from touching them. Kwang Nugent extends wings, creating slipstream carrying everyone forward faster. LCC Ha chants, closing mantra, sealing gateway behind to prevent pursuit. They emerge onto a new terrace overlooking heart of Eternal City's core. Sky above shimmers with inverted constellations swirling like living ocean of light. Turn Dipe steadies breath, feeling expanded awareness, connecting to entire domain. LCCEIN scans environment, noting countless doors radiating different spiritual signatures. Kwang Nugent senses presence of guardian stronger than previous encountered shades. LCHA's staff trembles, resonating with invisible frequencies of approaching challenge. Turn Dipe declares quietly, "We've passed first gate. Now second awaits." Group aligns behind him, accepting whatever trials Eternal City places before them. Wind of Stardust sweeps terrace, carrying whispers of ancient cultivators' vows. Turn Dipe lifts sword once more, eyes shining, stepping toward next threshold unafraid. Trant Deep stands on shining steps, gazing across Eternal City's crystalline horizon under swirling cosmic stars. LCC Ian steadies her breathing, sensing vast sword energy coiling beyond the final celestial gate tonight. Kwang Nuyan's wings glimmer silver, his eyes scanning flickering constellations shifting like ancient gears above. LC Ha traces glowing runes along her staff, whispering forgotten spells to steady their souls. The Eternal City vibrates softly, each crystal wall humming echoes of countless battles fought here. 1,000 hidden swords sing in invisible harmony, merging into a colossal celestial symphony echoing endlessly. Trant Deep feels starlight pouring through his veins, each pulse sharpening his heart like steel. LCC In whispers encouragement, her hand trembling with a warmth only trust and destiny can bring. Kwang Nujin narrows his gaze, sensing unseen forces gathering beyond the mirrored lake ahead. LC Hot nods toward the shimmering stairs, signaling the journey's last test has begun. They descend steps of condensed starlight, each footstep resonating with cosmic rhythm and immense weight. Beneath them appears the mirror lake, its surface swirling with infinite swords pointing skyward above. Trant Deep kneels, placing his sword across his lap, closing eyes to find pure focus. LCC Ian channels gentle spiritual energy, a calm stream flowing directly into Trant Deep's meridians. Kwang Nujin spreads protective wings, deflecting stray currents of astral force threatening to destabilize space. LCC Ha draws protective circles around the group, runes glowing with steady emerald light. The mirror lake churns, projecting countless reflections of Trant Deep's past struggles and silent triumphs. Ancient voices whisper through the wind. Only true heart can unite countless swords beyond heaven. Trant Deep recalls childhood training, humble beginnings shaping his will harder than celestial iron ever forged. Images flash of battles, friends lost, and hopes reborn within fiery crucibles of cosmic storms. He exhales slowly, accepting every failure and victory as one seamless path toward transcendence. Suddenly sword pillars rise from the lake, encircling him in a dazzling lattice of light. Each blade hums a different tone, together forming an endless melody beyond mortal comprehension. LCC Ian watches with awe, sensing his spirit expanding outward, merging with infinite sword currents. Kwang Nujin braces, feeling an approaching presence as colossal as the heavens themselves above. LCC Ha strengthens protective runes, fearing imminent manifestation of the guardian sword spirit's wrath. Trant Deep raises his palm, drawing sword light inward, heart steady as mountain unshaken. Infinite star lines converge into his blade, infusing it with the galaxy's raw, untamed energy. The mirror lake shatters upward, transforming into a vast arena of shimmering cosmic blades. A towering figure emerges, armored in meteor steel, eyes blazing with celestial authority, absolute. This guardian sword spirit brandishes a blade spanning galaxies, its swing dividing entire dimensions apart. Without warning, it strikes downward, slicing through air with deafening resonance of collapsing stars. Trant Deep meets the blow, sword flashing arcs of white fire against titanic force. The impact shakes Eternal City, raining crystalline shards like shimmering meteors upon silent streets. LCCIN cries out but holds her stance, channeling energy to reinforce Trant Deep's spirit. Kwang Nujin roars, summoning silver barriers to disperse the backlash of cosmic collision shockwaves. LC Ha's staff pulses, bright emerald, sealing spatial fractures threatening to swallow the arena whole. Trant Deep pivots, blade dancing, weaving intricate spirals, neutralizing Guardian's overwhelming pressure waves. He recalls the mantra whispered earlier, "Heal easy arrogance, hold true heart, let sword guide you." Relaxing his grip, he moves seamlessly, body and blade one flowing celestial stream together. The Guardian pauses, eyes narrowing, recognizing transformation within this mortal's steady, unwavering gaze. A second swing descends, fiercer, splitting heaven's lattice. Sword energy screams like storm dragons. Trant Deep steps forward, thrusting his blade straight, piercing through layers of cosmic radiance. Light engulfs both figures, blinding observers. Sound vanishes, replaced by endless shining silence. LCCIN shields her face, tears streaking, unsure if he survives that cataclysmic exchange ahead. Kwang Nujon prays silently, wings trembling, sensing boundaries of mortal endurance shattered completely. LC chants, stabilizing threads of reality as arena quakes like a dying star imploding. Within the light, Tran Deep and Guardian lock swords, currents flowing between hearts and steel. He sees Guardian's memory. Endless ages protecting Gate, longing release from eternal duty binding spirit. Understanding floods him. Sympathy softens his aura, his blade shifts from attack to embrace. Guardian hesitates, celestial eyes flickering, sensing compassion breaking chains forged by heaven's decree itself. Tran Deep whispers inwardly, promising freedom, letting sword embody unity, not destruction between them both. Their blades dissolve into shimmering motes, merging into a single river of starlight swirling upward. Light explodes outward, dissolving Guardian's armor into countless falling constellations across mirror arena skies. A sigh echoes, at last. Release, as Guardian's form melts into Tran Deep's expanding aura. His blade reforms, transparent crystal with galaxies swirling inside, humming soft hymn of liberation. LCC incenses his breakthrough, heart surging with relief and boundless admiration toward Tran Deep's courage. Kwang Nujon lowers wings, eyes reflecting newborn stars as silence blankets eternal city's sacred ground. LCC steadies staff, whispering prayers of gratitude for witnessing this transcendental union tonight. The mirror lake closes, leaving polished floor marked with luminous constellations under their feet. In its center appears a colossal archway engraved with runes, glowing sword beyond Heaven Gate. Starlight cascades down, illuminating for companions, casting halos of silver radiance around their silhouettes. Tran Deep stands taller, crystal blade shimmering, gaze serene yet burning with infinite purpose. LCCIN approaches, touching his arm, feeling calm, power resonating like deep ocean tides. Kwang Nujon smiles faintly, realizing their journey has reached an unprecedented pinnacle none dared imagine. LC Ha's eyes glisten with tears, murmuring, "We have reached the final threshold at last." Cosmic winds swirl, carrying whispers of ancient cultivators cheering unseen beyond mortal perception now. Tran Deep raises sword to his forehead, silently vowing not conquest but harmonious transcendence always. The archway trembles, unlocking with celestial chimes like glass bells ringing through endless void. A sea of light unfurls beyond, flowing endlessly like the universe's own beating heart eternal. LCC Ian inhales sharply, steadying herself for the unknown path shimmering beyond that radiant veil. Kwang Nujon spreads wings wider, eager to embrace new horizons where destiny awaits their steps. LCC Ha grips her staff, its runes echoing in harmony with the gate's ancient song. Tran Deep looks back briefly, remembering every hardship forging his resolve, shaping his immortal heart. Stars above brighten, constellations forming dragons, phoenixes, swords saluting the travelers stepping forward. Light wraps around them like warm river, each pulse washing away fatigue and lingering fears. Their shadows stretch long, then vanish, replaced by silhouettes of radiant beings stepping beyond mortal sight. Eternal City stands silent, only echoes of sword hymns lingering where history was forged now. Tran Deep whispers gratitude for companions, mentors, and even adversaries shaping his transcendent path always. LCC. Ian smiles softly, sensing adventure still unfolding far beyond this threshold they now cross. Kwang Nujon glances upward, eyes reflecting galaxies, determined to follow wherever Tran Deep's blade leads onward. LC Ha mutters protective blessings, sealing behind them the gateway's turbulent energies of ages past. Together they stride toward the archway, each step harmonizing with cosmic pulse and eternal rhythm. Tran Deep feels his heart resonate with billions of stars, each beat a universe awakening. LCC Yen's aura flares rose gold, intertwining with Tran Deep's crystalline swordlight weaving protective lattice. Kwang Nujon breathes deep, wings catching falling starlight like countless shimmering petals of night's flower. LC Hop's staff vibrates gently, sensing hidden truths waiting in the boundless dimension ahead. Still, beyond archway stretches vast corridor of swirling galaxies, each twist echoing forgotten myths of creation. Tran Deep steps first, blade raised, aura calm, soul ready to merge with infinite unknown. LCCIN follows, her footsteps leaving rose trails dissolving into stardust behind them slowly. Kwang Nujon enters next, wings folded as if in reverence before cosmic sanctum beyond understanding. LCC Ha brings up the rear, chanting final verse, sealing old world away behind forever. Gate closes silently, leaving eternal city empty, yet vibrant with newly awakened sword resonance. Starlight drifts downward, forming phantom images of their journey etched forever in celestial memory. Tran Deep feels weightless, body dissolving into energy yet centered by unwavering immortal heart within. Each companion shares glance, silent vow binding them beyond time, beyond galaxies, beyond mortal fears. The corridor ahead curves into luminous spiral, ascending toward a throne of pure dawn light. Whispers of future battles flicker through Tran Deep's mind, but no dread touches his resolve. His crystal blade hums, eager to carve new paths where heaven and earth cannot restrain. Together they vanish into radiance, forging next chapter of legend called Sword, Beyond Heaven's Destiny. Tran Deep stood beneath starlit sky, feeling endless sword intent swirl around his determined heart. LCCIN watched silently, her breath trembling as ancient power pulsed beneath crystalline floating land. Kwang Nugent unfurled silver wings, sensing invisible blades slicing the air with sharp celestial rhythm. LCC Ha raised her staff, protective runes glowing softly against the weight of cosmic pressure. Floating platforms formed pathways, each glowing with runic symbols like star maps guiding hidden destinies. Tran Deep felt Kim Hyo's call, deeper than before, merging with his pulse and memories. Sword spirits whispered, testing his will, echoing ancient oaths taken by forgotten immortals long ago. He stepped forward, feet touching luminous floor, feeling reality bend beneath his concentrated sword aura. LCC-E&I followed closely, heart steady yet uncertain, trusting Tran Deep's calm, unshakable presence completely. Kwang Nugent scanned surroundings, every flicker revealing a trap of shimmering sword energy and illusions. The first phantom swordsman appeared, eyes like ice, blade shimmering with infinite silent fury. Tran Deep drew his sword slowly, merging his breath with cosmic flow, refusing external distraction entirely. Blades clashed like thunder, echoing across galaxies, fragments of light falling like crystalline rain. Each strike dissolved illusions, revealing layers of truth hidden beneath star-woven veils of destiny. The phantom shattered into motes, leaving a path of light bridging next celestial arena. LCC-Ian gasped softly, sensing deeper resonance between Tran Deep's soul and universe itself forming. They advanced further, the platform narrowing into radiant bridge above infinite swordstorm. Sword winds howled, carrying echoes of warriors who failed crossing cosmic trial before eternity. Tran Deep breathed deeply, centering his mind, stepping onto bridge like walking on thought. Every step merged sword winds into calm ripples, forming stable road behind his movements. LCCE-In mirrored his technique, eyes closed, surrendering fear to unity of intent. Kwang Nugent steadied wings, following carefully, feeling sword currents become gentle beneath steady focus. LCC Ha whispered ancient mantras, bending streams of force, weaving protection around companions quietly. Reaching other side, they saw towers spiraling into infinity, doors carved with cosmic swords. Tran Deep approached first door, sensing it pull him inward, like memory, becoming solid. Inside, he stood as child again, rain pouring, practicing sword alone with trembling hands. Old failures surrounded him, voices mocking, yet he lifted blade, embracing pain as strength. Past dissolved, door opened, revealing second chamber, showing cold future of solitary power. He rejected coldness, choosing bonds over dominion, shattering vision, unlocking upper stairway of tower. Each level tested fragments of self, illusions breaking under steady acceptance and chosen path. LCCIN faced her own trials, walking memories of betrayal, transforming grief into courage. Kwang Nugent confronted wingless form, embracing loss to restore flight beyond material constraints. LC-Ha stood before shadows of forgotten covenants, weaving forgiveness to ascend higher floors. Together they emerged atop tower, facing giant sword of concept piercing starfield beyond. Sword of ultimate Tao, pulsed, not matter, but principle, radiating annihilation for unworthy touch. Tran Deep stepped closer, hearing echoes of masters. Sky does not oppose sword. He extended palm, letting energy flow inward, threads of cosmos spinning around his core. Pain-seared veins, yet mind clear, heart steady, forging bridge between heaven and blade. Stars reflected in sword's surface, spinning like galaxies, merging with his own immortal intent. Slowly, colossal blade shrank, becoming transparent, entering his weapon, transforming destiny of its bearer. LCC-In felt wave of power, knees trembling under weight of new boundless aura. Kwang Nujin shielded eyes from glare, sensing entire realm bow before new sword resonance. LCC Ha murmured blessings, staff vibrating with sympathetic harmony to Trandeep's transformation. Silence followed, deep and vast, as if universe inhaled, acknowledging newborn principle incarnate. Trandeep opened eyes, pupils reflecting countless stars, voice calm path truly begins. Platform dissolved beneath them, reassembling as starlit plain stretching beyond known celestial charts. Ahead rose archway of rose-violet light, shimmering with unknown constellations, beckoning further exploration. They walked side by side, no longer simply travelers but bearers of integrated cosmic will. Sword in Trandeep's hand hummed softly, like heartbeat of heaven echoing through silent void. LCC Yen's aura intertwined with his, stabilizing frequencies of immense energy around group completely. Kwang Nujin carried protective winds, dispersing lingering shards of shattered illusions behind their steps. LCC Ha marked path with runes of memory, anchoring route should they ever return. Stars rearranged overhead, forming ancient symbols foretelling arrival of chosen swordbearer, fulfilling prophecy. Trandeep contemplated meaning of journey, realizing trials shaped more than blade or technique. LCC Yin whispered encouragement, reminding him bonds matter as much as strength or destiny. Kwang Nujin laughed lightly, breaking tension, lifting spirits amid cosmic solemnity surrounding them. LC Ha predicted next challenge would blend reality and myth, testing truth of their unity. Beyond archway floated islands of light, each pulsing with different sword frequencies and visions. Trandeep adjusted grip, merging breath with cosmic beat, preparing for unknown new worlds. Sword's inner galaxies brightened, hinting at powers still dormant, awaiting proper moment of release. LCCE incensed faint melodies carried by cosmic winds, ancient songs guiding righteous seekers. Kwang Nujin felt feathers glow, each plume etched with starlight runes, enhancing spiritual flight. LC Ha's staff lengthened, channels of pure energy opening to counter future adversaries, seamlessly. Together, they reached luminous threshold where colors inverted, ground folding like liquid crystal. Trandeep glanced back once, seeing fading image of tower, symbol of conquered trials. He inhaled deeply, exhaling fear, stepping forward with quiet confidence gained from surviving essence tests. LCC In followed unwavering, her eyes carrying sparks of trust and awakening sword intuition. Kwang Nujin advanced boldly, wings spread wide, casting reflections across shifting starlit terrain below. LC Ha completed group's movement, her protective aura forming dome against stray cosmic fragments. New realm unfolded, a tapestry of blades suspended like constellations across endless silent night. Each blade whispered forgotten stories, inviting chosen bearer to draw them into living memory. Trandeep listened, discerning pattern within chaos, mapping sword voices like celestial harmonics. He raised his transformed sword, resonance aligning countless echoes into single unified chord. Energy surged outward, forming pathway bridging isolated clusters into continuous glowing avenue. LCC In stepped beside him, her presence stabilizing bridge, amplifying clarity of new creation. Kwang Nujin tested edge of path, finding it solid under combined will and harmony. LC Hot inscribed runes of permanence, ensuring path endured against cosmic tides forevermore. They progressed further, each step erasing boundaries between individual spirit and infinite cosmos. Trandeep's thoughts expanded, perceiving networks of causality, threads connecting all blades and stars. Sword in his hand, vibrated joyfully, sensing alignment of wielder's destiny with universal flow. LCCIN marveled at change, seeing Trandeep not only warrior but living principle now. Kwang Nujin drew breath of starlight, feeling newfound courage anchored by transcendent companionship. LC Ha's eyes glimmered with hope, foreseeing dawn of new legend rewriting heavens entirely. Ahead shimmered golden gate carved of pure song, requiring united chord to unlock passage. Trandeep raised blade, companions linked minds, weaving intent into symphony, unlocking threshold barrier. Gate dissolved into radiant mist, revealing core sanctuary of sword beyond heaven at last. Air thick with primordial energy, older than stars, carrying scent of lightning and lotus. Trandeep knelt briefly, honoring countless predecessors whose struggles built road to this point. LCCIN placed hand on his shoulder, steady warmth grounding infinite scope within heart. Kwang Nujin bowed low, wings folded, acknowledging sacredness of newfound cosmic sanctum's presence. LCC Ha struck staff once, sealing commitment to journey beyond boundaries of mortal comprehension. Central dais rose, holding crystalline sphere swirling with fragments of every sword ever forged. Tran Deep approached sphere, sensing it respond to heartbeat, merging with his sword's galaxies. Energy cascaded upward, weaving new patterns, rewriting laws of combat and creation simultaneously. LCCIN shielded eyes as pillar of light erupted, joining heaven, earth, and void. Kwang Nugent steadied ground, feathers burning bright with celestial runes of stabilization and unity. LCC, Ha chanted, harmonizing frequencies, preventing overload of infinite knowledge flooding companions instantly. Tran Deep exhaled slowly, absorbing essence, forging ultimate harmony between self, blade, and universe. Silence returned, deeper than before, leaving only heartbeat of cosmic sword echoing through eternity. Together they stepped forward, ready for uncharted path beyond heaven, wielding sword transcending all limits. Tran Deep steps into the endless void, purple-gray mist swirling like cosmic whirlpools everywhere. LCCEIN follows quietly, feeling invisible currents pull at her soul across shimmering pathways. Kwang Nugent spreads his silver wings, sensing fragments of ancient laws floating around them. LCC Ha touches her array flag, stabilizing their route through turbulent void storms. Purple-gray clouds reflect hidden memories, mirroring each cultivator's deepest fears and desires. Tran Deep sees countless sword paths branching, luminous threads weaving through infinite darkness. LCCEIN hears echoes of her childhood voice, pleading for protection and strength. Kwang Nugent recalls, shattered wings drenched in black blood, pain returning like cold fire. LC Ha glimpses, a massive ancient formation, its glowing runes sealing forgotten oaths. Tran Deep's sword vibrates softly, guiding them toward a spiraling corridor of blue light. Columns of rotating mist rise, like dragons, each inscribed with cryptic celestial characters. The air thickens into liquid mirror, distorting their faces into countless reflections. A voice whispers from nowhere, challenging them to transcend themselves beyond illusions. The corridor shifts suddenly, producing phantom figures identical to each traveler. Tran Deep confronts his own clone, blade raised in silent acknowledgement. LCCIN meets a shadow version of herself, calm eyes filled with restrained fury. Kwang Nugent circles overhead, his copy mirroring every wingbeat perfectly. LCC Ha deploys arrays, trapping her duplicate inside shifting runes. Tran Deep's sword strikes collide with his clone's blade, galaxies exploding in sparks. LCC Yen's gentle technique dissolves her clone's rage, turning hostility into still water. Kwang Nugent unleashes windblades, shattering the mirrored feathers of his shadow self. LCC Ha balances opposing forces, compressing her clone into a glowing sphere. Their clones roar silently, merging into swirling energy streams around them. The void trembles, reshaping into a massive lotus of shimmering fog. Each petal displays different memories, pushing them to confront inner attachments. Tran Deep inhales slowly, centering his heart on the sword within. LCCIN recites mantras learned in childhood, stabilizing her emotional fluctuations. Kwang Nugent remembers flight beyond mountains, his desire to be free renewed. LCC Ha reconfigures her array, aligning spirit veins with cosmic flow. Sword auras from 4 cultivators weave together, forming a radiant protective cocoon. Phantom voices chant ancient hymns, echoing from unseen depths. Blue corridors spiral outward, splitting into countless star-like paths. Tran Deep senses a gateway ahead, shimmering like liquid crystal. LCC Yen's heart resonates with a distant bell, guiding her footsteps. Kwang Nugent's wings scatter sparks of silver, lighting the path. LC Ha places seals on air currents, holding their shape. A cosmic dragon emerges from mist, eyes glowing with starlight. It circles them, testing their determination without striking. Tran Deep bows slightly, offering respectful intent through sword aura. The dragon fades, leaving a spiral rune behind. That rune locks onto Tran Deep's sword, fusing cosmic intent. LCCEIN channels healing ki, soothing internal wounds from earlier battles. Kwang Nugent exhales storm breath, dispersing lingering illusions. LC Ha's arrays hum, storing fragments of void energy for later. The corridor narrows, light bending sharply around them. Tran Deep senses time itself twisting, days passing like breaths. LCCIN reaches out, touching his arm for reassurance. Kwang Nugent glances downward, seeing no ground at all. LCC Ha releases a flare, measuring distance to the spiral gate. A tide of invisible swords rises from below, slashing upward. Tran Deep counters instantly, weaving defensive patterns mid-air. LCCEIN transforms her ki into lotus shields, blocking unseen strikes. Kwang Nugent dives, creating turbulence that disperses sword tide. LC Ha triggers a barrier array, reflecting shimmering blades outward. Silence follows, heavier than before, as if void itself waits. Turn Dipe closes his eyes, feeling the heartbeat of the universe. LCCN's breathing synchronizes with distant cosmic pulses. Kwang Nugent folds wings inward, conserving strength for final push. LC Ha grounds herself in runic formations, anchoring their space. A faint chime announces the opening of a deeper vortex. Turn Dipe gestures forward, sword tip glowing with guiding light. LCCEIN steps beside him, expression calm yet determined. Kwang Nugent spreads wings again, casting protective currents. LCC Ha adjusts her flag, tracing symbols for safe passage. Mist turns translucent, revealing endless constellations, swirling like rivers. Each star pulses with sword intent, pressing upon their minds. Turn Dipe absorbs the pressure, refining his inner realm. LCCIN merges her breathing with cosmic rhythm, finding serenity. Kwang Nugent channels winds through feathers, scattering oppressive force. LC Hop's arrays create anchor points in void, reducing drift. They march onward, shadows trailing behind like spectral banners. A ripple of laughter echoes, hinting at hidden watchers. Turn Dipe sharpens focus, sensing traps within laughter. LCC Yen's eyes flash, detecting faint energy signatures ahead. Kwang Nugent tilts his head, listening for pattern in echoes. LC Ha scribes counter runes on her palm, preparing. Suddenly, mirror fragments fall like rain around them. Each fragment holds a distorted image of their future. Turn Dipe smashes fragments, refusing predestination. LCCEI lets hers dissolve into shimmering mist. Kwang Nugent breathes fire like wind, melting shards. LCII captures fragments into sealing scrolls. Void clears, revealing a colossal gateway of blue light, its edges carved with countless swords, tips pointing inward. Turn Dipe approaches first, sword aura merging with gateway resonance. LCCEN places her palm on its surface, feeling warmth. Kwang Nugent hovers overhead, scanning horizon for danger. LC Ha inserts her flag into a slot, unlocking mechanism. The gateway hums, rotating slowly like a wheel of galaxies. Streams of runes flow outward, wrapping around their bodies. Turn Dipe looks back once, eyes filled with unshakable resolve. LCCEIN nods softly, silent promise echoing in gaze. Kwang Nugent flexes wings, ready for unknown sky. LCC Ha breathes deeply, steadying her heartbeat. Together they step forward, crossing threshold of shimmering light. Instantly they feel weightlessness, senses stretching beyond limits. Sound vanishes, only heartbeat and distant sword hum remain. Colors invert, void transforming into spiraling azure corridors. Turn Dipe senses the next realm calling, its voice older than stars. For cultivators disappear into spiral gate, leaving echoes with an endless void. Turn Dipe steps into divine light, feeling endless pressure pressing on his body. LCC Eon gasps as shimmering rivers of energy swirl, threatening to tear their souls apart. Kwang Nugent spreads wings, creating gusts that break invisible currents in shimmering void. LCC Ha activates 7-layer formations, spinning circles absorbing fragments of divine energy. Turn Dipe grips sword tightly, sensing power far beyond mortal comprehension surrounding them. They emerge into vast square of violet crystal beneath towering ancient stone pillars. Air smells like thunder and sword metal, vibrating with countless hidden laws. A silver-armored figure stands alone, mask glowing with strange starlight intensity. Its voice echoes, pass the divine sword trial, or perish in holy ground. Turn Dipe, bows slightly. Eyes burning, I accept your challenge, without hesitation. LCCEN channels Lotus Barrier, soft light wrapping their group in swirling petals. Kwang Nugent hovers above, wings slicing invisible chains constricting sacred arena. LCC Ha plants banners, activating protective array, glowing like celestial net. Silver warrior lifts sword, unleashing radiant strike like miniature sun descending. Ground fractures, violet crystals explode as energy storm engulfs combatants instantly. Turn Dipe counters with 9-petal sword light blooming like luminous flower. Clash shatters space, shockwaves roll across pillars, breaking ancient carvings violently. Turn Dipe senses divine law interwoven inside opponent's unstoppable strike. He summons 80-layer sword array, each wave overlapping like rolling tides. Silver Warrior responds, summoning Starfall River, millions of celestial blades raining. LCC, Yen's Lotus spins faster, neutralizing fragments tearing through surrounding air. Kwang Nugent dives, wind arcs, scattering falling star swords away from allies. LCC Ha expands formation, sealing cracks and absorbing violent spatial ripples. Turn Dipe fuses sword intent with heavenly rules, forming single blazing arc. That arc slices through Star River, reaching Silver Warrior's guarded heart. Explosion rattles realm. Divine light swirls like spiral galaxies converging inward. Silver Warrior steps back, mask flickers with acknowledgement of opponent's power. Voice echoes, "You are worthy, mortal. The gate shall open for you." Figure dissolves, leaving luminous pathway stretching toward distant, floating city. Turn Dipe lowers sword. Sweat on brow but eyes firm and determined. LCCIN exhales, relief. Petals folding inward returning to jade pendant. Kwang Nugent lands heavily. Wings trembling yet burning with determination renewed. LCC Ha checks formations, sensing subtle changes in divine currents nearby. Before them rises Golden Fortress suspended in clouds, walls etched with swords. On massive gate shines, ancient characters radiating endless sword intent. LCCIN whispers, "Within lies the heavenly origin sword heart." Kwang Nugent grins, "Then we must claim it before rivals arrive." LCC Ha nods cautiously, preparing traps for unpredictable divine guardians ahead. Turn Dipe steps forward, feeling each movement carve mark upon flowing time. A tunnel of light engulfs them, showing countless memories of forgotten warriors. Streams of visions flood minds, revealing battles lost and victories etched in history. Turn Dipe steadies breath, separating illusion from reality with sword awareness. They land on narrow jade bridge flanked by stone statues of sword guardians. Statues exude aura like sleeping beasts ready to awaken at slightest trespass. Turn Dipe whispers, "Do not touch them, walk straight." Eyes forward, step by step they advance, each echo reverberating through divine corridor silently. Guardians' eyes flicker faint light, testing will of intruders inching forward carefully. Pressure thickens, spiritual senses muffled as though walking underwater currents. LCC-IN clenches fists, Lotus charm trembling in unseen wind of power. Kwang Nugent flexes wings but refrains from sudden movement fearing activation. LC Ha counts glyphs etched into floor, calculating safe steps between sigils precisely. Almost reaching end, last guardian statue moves slightly, eyes blazing bright. Its stone sword rises, carving rift in air filled with razor wind. Turn Dipe reacts instantly, drawing heaven-piercing sword line cutting across rift. Collision rings like thunder, fragments of stone fly yet statue freezes again. Energy dissipates, leaving silence heavy as ocean floor pressing down slowly. Group crosses final step, emerging into vast sea of violet clouds. In center floats luminous path of crystal leading toward golden gate above. Turn Dipe inhales deeply, sensing destiny calling from fortress beyond mists. LCCIN steadies herself, eyes glowing with reflection of countless sword spirits. Kwang Nugent mutters, "We survived the corridor. What awaits beyond?" LC Ha answers, softly, "Trials will only grow harsher. Remain vigilant always." Air shimmers, revealing distant towers shaped like swords piercing heavens endlessly. Turn Dipe channels, sword intent, blending with divine current guiding their path forward. They ascend crystalline steps, spiraling upward, each step heavier than mountain. Voices of old guardians whisper warnings, promising both glory and annihilation. LCCIN draws breath of faith, steadying heart like still lotus pond. Kwang Nugent flexes fingers, calling storm within veins to answer challenge ahead. LCC Ha plants miniature banners, leaving safety marks behind for retreat path. Above, fortress doors glow brighter, runes shifting like living entities swirling together. Turn Dipe feels sword vibrating, eager to test itself against heavenly law. They reach balcony of golden light, gazing upon infinite ocean of clouds. Lightning arcs silently between floating islands shaped like colossal swords in sky. LCCIN murmurs prayers to ancient masters, asking guidance amid divine expanse. Kwang Nugent smiles faintly, adrenaline sharpening senses to blade-like clarity now. LCC Ha closes eyes, seeing invisible threads connecting destinies among stars. Turn Dipe tightens grip, recalling promises driving him to transcend mortal limits. A golden bell tolls from fortress, sound shaking marrow of every bone. Light bridges form ahead, linking balcony to gate with shimmering energy streams. They step forward together, silhouettes merging with glowing currents of destiny. Beneath, statues awaken briefly but bowheads acknowledging challengers' determination displayed. Air thick with fragrance of divine herbs hidden among clouds like mist. LCC, Een senses healing power, rejuvenating fatigue from endless combat trials. Kwang Nugent unfurls wings, absorbing sparks, strengthening inner storms within veins. LC Haas runes rearrange spontaneously, attuning formation to higher realm frequencies. Turn Dipe channels new understanding of sword, merging compassion with unstoppable force. Fortress Gate now looms immense, casting golden shadow across path of heroes. Energy streams converge into lock shaped like ancient sword hilt, awaiting touch. LCCIN glances at Turn Dipe, silently granting permission to lead forward. Kwang Nugent stands guard behind, eyes scanning horizon for unseen threats. LCC, Ha readies seals, anticipating sudden traps or guardians emerging unexpectedly. Turn Dipe lifts sword, pressing blade tip against glowing lock precisely. Lock dissolves into beams of light swirling upward toward open sky. Gate creaks open slowly, revealing inner sanctums shimmering with celestial rivers. Air hums with power older than stars, breathing life into their spirits. They exchange silent nods, stepping across threshold into unknown realm ahead. Behind them, bridge fades like dream, sealing path of return completely. Before them, stretches vast hall lined with sword pillars carved of cosmic stone. Turn Dipe whispers. From this moment, we walk only forward into destiny. Together they advance, hearts aligned, swords ready, eyes fixed on divine horizon beyond. Turn Dipe enters the grand hall, sensing immense sword pressure flowing through ancient carved walls. LCCIN follows closely, summoning lotus light to shield them from overwhelming spiritual sword energy. Kwang Nugent spreads his wings, creating wind currents to ease the crushing force around companions. LCC Ha draws runes, weaving protective arrays across shimmering blue stone floor of the hall. Massive pillars glow softly, inscribed with countless sword characters radiating timeless intent of ancients. Ceiling reflects starlit patterns, as if sky compressed into crystal above their heads. Turn Dipe closes eyes, aligning his heartbeat with pulsing sword aura filling entire chamber. 9 sword blossoms emerge around him, spinning slowly like galaxies of luminous steel. LCC Yen's lotus seal vibrates, scattering tiny petals of light across tense air. Kwang Nuyen's wind merges with a ray's glow, producing soothing resonance under pressure. LC Haf's formation anchors them, preventing collapse beneath invisible weight pressing downward. Deep voice echoes, enter the sword heart, face the divine blade guardians within. 4 statues rise, each wielding colossal swords formed from pure condensed sword intent. Their eyes ignite, scanning intruders with silent judgment from ancient times. Floor cracks slightly beneath their first step, energy ripples outward violently. Turn Dipe steadies his grip on Thanvan's sword, determination flaring bright inside. We've come too far to retreat now, he whispers beneath heavy sword aura. LCC Een forms multi-layered lotus shields, petals spinning like orbiting stars around her. Kwang Nugent channels wind into vortex, bending streams of hostile sword light away. LC Hot's runes glow gold, weaving lattice of power to reinforce battlefield ground. 4 statues swing swords simultaneously, crossing beams like an enormous glowing X across hall. Space trembles, leaving shimmering fissures where their blades intersect, threatening all matter. Turn Dipe lunges forward, dragon-shaped sword aura exploding from Thanvan's sword tip. Dragon aura smashes against first statue, scattering fragments of light across chamber. LCC Yen's petals intercept twin beams, dissolving them into harmless motes of spark. Kwang Nuyen's cyclone pulls third beam aside, diverting destructive path from allies. LC Ha binds fourth beam with spinning seal of intricate runes swirling upward. Thunderous clash echoes like mountains breaking under celestial hammer of power. Energy backlash shakes pillars, ancient carvings shimmer but hold under pressure. Turn Dipe feels patterns hidden inside attacks, each movement revealing deeper sword truth. His strikes grow fluid, blending softness and steel like water carving stone slowly. LCC Een stabilizes breathing, merging lotus technique with sword resonance of hall. Kwang Nugent discovers rhythm of wind, weaving currents between statues, slashes precisely. LC Ha sighs glow white, array evolving into shimmering dome anchoring battlefield. First statue roars silently, swinging blade faster, arcs, slicing void open. Turn Dipe counters with upward sweep, Dragon Aura coiling skyward like spiral storm. Clash sends sparks raining like meteor shower across ancient crystal ceiling. LCCIN disperses incoming fragments with petal waves shimmering pink and gold. Kwang Nugent dives through air, creating wind tunnels reducing attack pressure. LCHS formation thickens, runes twisting into layered shields of light. Second, statue lunges forward, sword tip gleaming like newborn sun's core. Turn Dipe sidesteps, cutting sideways, drawing crescent arc, shimmering blue-white. Impact knocks statue backward half-step, stone feet grinding deep grooves. LCCEIN amplifies petals into spear shapes, striking joints of statue fiercely. Kwang Nugent roars wind chant, sending compressed air blades between cracks. LCC Ha infuses seal with fire element, igniting network of lines beneath. Third statue swings overhead, energy wave rippling toward ceiling violently. Turn Dipe leaps high, slashing downward with dragon tail-like strike. Lightning-shaped aura follows blade, splitting energy wave into glitter fragments. LCCEI supports leap, creating lotus platform under his feet briefly. Kwang Nugent spins midair, flinging wind discs, cutting around statue shoulders. LCC Ha channels ancient chant, array forming 12-point star imprisoning feet. Fourth statue releases silent burst, sword aura coiling like serpent striking. Turn Dipe's eyes flash, dragon aura coils around his entire body protectively. He parries, sending shockwave rolling outward, like collapsing mountain. LCC Yen's shield blossoms bigger, absorbing residual strike entirely. Kwang Nugent catches falling debris, blowing it aside harmlessly. LC Hot's lattice reforms instantly, locking cracks before energy leaks. Statues intensify speed, movements now blur of blinding sword arcs. Turn Dipe relaxes stance, surrendering ego to flow of universal sword rhythm. His sword becomes extension of will, striking without thought, fluid and precise. LCCEN harmonizes breathing, petals rotating with Hall's heartbeat exactly. Kwang Nugent merges wind into silent currents, guiding energy flow across field. LC Hoff's eyes close, controlling formation telepathically with calm focus. First statue shatters suddenly, fragments turning into glowing motes swirling upward. Dragon aura behind Turn Dipe solidifies, shimmering phantom of sword god, towering. LCC Yen's petals condense, forming lotus crown above her head, glowing bright. Kwang Nugent feels wings empowered, feathers turning silver beneath storm. LC Ha SRA stabilizes permanently, runes sinking into floor like roots. Remaining statues pause briefly, lowering swords fractionally as if acknowledging mastery. Voice returns, sword heart embraced. Path forward, now revealed. Seeker chosen. Rift of light appears at center hall, swirling like galaxy vortex. Energy pulls gently, inviting them beyond chamber of trials, toward unknown realm. Turn Dipe wipes, sweat, glancing at companions with steady, determined eyes. LCCEN smiles faintly, sensing new threshold crossed within cultivation journey. Kwang Nugent laughs low, eager to test new power acquired inside battle. LCC Ha bows head, sealing array into talisman tucked inside sleeve. Floor begins to dim, carvings fading slowly like closing ancient eyes. Air grows lighter, oppressive force lifting as trial ends completely. Dragon aura dissolves into Turn Dipe's sword, merging seamlessly with blade spirit. LCCEN withdraws lotus seal, petals vanishing into soft mist around. Kwang Nugent folds wings calmly, feathers losing storm glow gradually. LCC Ha erases remaining runes, leaving only faint golden outline behind. Rift widens, spilling radiant beams across polished blue stones underfoot. They step closer, feeling gentle pull, like tide of celestial ocean. Turn Dipe gazes into vortex, glimpsing shifting stars and endless bridges inside. LCCIN inhales deeply, preparing for whatever waits beyond threshold. Kwang Nugent's eyes sparkle, thrilled by mystery behind swirling gateway. LC Ha whispers protective charm, letting it float before group's path. Hall echoes last resonance, sword hum fading into eternal silence. Statues remain scatter upward, forming constellation of glowing swords overhead. Light constellation bends, shaping ancient rune of ascension, guiding seekers onward. Turn Dipe steps first, body dissolving into streak of silver light. LCCEIN follows close, her aura blending seamlessly with star vortex. Kwang Nugent dives with wings folded, streaking like comet tail into gate. LCC Ha walks last, sealing gateway behind them with faint gesture. Rift seals quietly, leaving only faint ripple in air where stood. Grand hall empty again, silence heavy as mountains in twilight glow. Carvings on walls dim completely, storing memory of battle deep within. Beyond Vortex, new world awaits, where Swordheart heavenly origin reveals ultimate secret. Turn Dipe stepped from the luminous portal, entering a floating stone platform amidst cosmic rivers. Below lay streams of radiant light and drifting meteors, weaving a surreal, endless celestial landscape. Bridges of sword energy arched between floating peaks, glowing with ancient, resonant immortal power. The atmosphere shimmered with pure essence, sharper and denser than any world they previously knew. Than Von's sword quivered in Turn Dipe's hand, resonating joyfully with the surrounding ethereal currents. Threads of sword ki drifted gently, brushing their bodies, testing their minds with invisible pressure. LCCIN activated a protective talisman, stabilizing her spirit against the crushing sword intent. Kwang Nugent unfurled his silver wings wide, inhaling deeply as if swallowing the celestial void. LCC Ha traced glowing runes in the air, analyzing energy currents spiraling through this strange dimension. In the distance rose a shining silver mountain, crowned by a radiant pillar piercing infinite skies. Around the summit, countless sword spirits formed armies of phantasmal warriors, radiating overwhelming authority. Each phantom soldier radiated sword intent equal to saints, guardians of the celestial mountain peak. Turn Dipe tightened his grip, sensing an unseen will pressing deep against his spiritual core. A sharp invisible blade grazed his consciousness, forcing his heartbeat to stagger under crushing force. LCCIN placed her hand gently on his shoulder, lending spiritual strength to stabilize him. Kwang Nugent scanned the horizon, spotting faint glimmers circling, like predators waiting in shadows. LCC Ha deciphered ancient celestial inscriptions hovering midair, mapping hidden flows of divine sword ki. Suddenly, a piercing sword note echoed, sharp and long, like music born of starlight. From shimmering void appeared a figure, clothed in white, holding a blade of pure energy. It was no mortal being, but condensed sword intent, eyes blazing brighter than twin suns. The being spoke thunderously, "Bearer of Than Van's sword, the heavenly origin accepts only resolve." Before replies could form, it lunged forward, sword cleaving space with boundless radiant brilliance. One strike split the heavens, leaving trails of light stretching leagues through endless celestial expanse. Turn Dipe raised Than Van's sword, meeting the blow head-on with unwavering determination and power. Their clash erupted, scattering star-like fragments, shimmering across void like cascading immortal meteors. LCCEN conjured protective lotus formations, shielding allies from surging shock waves, threatening to annihilate them. Kwang Nugent unleashed cyclones, silver wings flaring, diverting destructive energy away from fragile companions. LCC Ha drew glowing symbols mid-air, sealing cracks forming within reality from immense force. Each strike between Turn Dipe and Phantom echoed like cosmic bells, shaping rhythm of existence. The duel was no mere battle, but symphony of sword intent spanning across dimensions. Phantom Warrior wielded forgotten ancient techniques, embodying the essence of primordial celestial sword law. Every stroke carved invisible paths, aligning with constellations that governed the balance of creation. Turn Dipe felt rhythm of universal breathing within strikes, guiding his responses more fluidly. His forehead dripped sweat, yet his eyes shone brighter, spirit unyielding before relentless opponent. Than Van's sword resonated loudly, conjuring dragon-shaped sword aura, wrapping around him like armor. With renewed will, he parried strikes, channeling flowing currents of heaven into seamless counterattacks. Phantom faltered briefly, its luminous body flickering, acknowledging growing strength of its destined challenger. Seizing moment, Turn Dipe curved sword, drawing arc that encompassed essence of flow. Strike did not destroy, but redirected energy, unraveling Phantom's relentless intent into scattered fragments. Phantom retreated, eyes glowing, then faintly smiled, a gesture of recognition and subtle approval. Its form shattered slowly into shards, each piece humming with sword intent and divine light. Fragments converged mid-air, condensing into ethereal blade floating gently before Turn Dipe's chest. Than Van's sword vibrated fiercely, absorbing blade, merging brilliance into core of its being. A surge of power erupted, sword glowing tenfold, radiating aura, transcending mortal comprehension. Turn Dipe gasped as new realm of sword understanding opened, expanding awareness beyond former limits. Kwang Nugent laughed triumphantly, his wings reflecting newfound hope, shining within radiant void. LCCEN gazed admiringly at him, eyes filled with unshakable trust and unwavering faith. LC Ha recorded runes forming spontaneously in air, preserving them for future divine research. The silver mountain trembled slightly, stairway of radiant steps glowing brighter, calling them forward. Turndipe steadied sword before chest, declaring firmly, the true heavenly origin path awaits us. Together they ascended, glowing staircase, each step resonating with harmonized heartbeat of sword Tao. Rivers of sword ki bent gently, guiding their passage, acknowledging newfound strength and chosen destiny. Above, constellations shimmered brighter, forming patterns resembling endless flowing arcs of celestial swords. Void around them grew serene, silence pierced only by rhythm of synchronized determined footsteps. Light of silver peak bathed their figures, etching silhouettes like immortal carvings into starlit sky. Sword spirits lining mountains saluted silently, lowering blades as acknowledgement of challengers' proven worth. Ancient melodies echoed faintly, whispered blessings of predecessors walking similar paths countless eons ago. Kwang Nujin spread wings, muttering softly, each step feels heavier, yet strangely more liberating. LCCEIN smiled. That is the weight of destiny, but also freedom of Tao. LCCI's eyes glowed as she noted currents converging, forming sacred protective veil around them. Turndipe felt Than Van's sword pulsing, not with aggression, but with boundless guiding warmth. His spirit merged deeper into blade, dissolving barriers between wielder and Tao itself. Every heartbeat echoed with distant stars, every breath aligned with rhythm of universal harmony. On final steps, phantom silhouettes reappeared briefly, bowing before vanishing into starlight streams. Path cleared completely, leaving only blinding brilliance radiating from summit of Silver Mountain. They reached final step together, gazes fixed upon core of heavenly origin sword domain. A colossal crystal obelisk stood, carved from condensed sword intent, older than recorded time. Its surface pulsed like living heart, emitting waves blending creation and annihilation seamlessly together. Turndipe advanced, placing palm on obelisk, sensing knowledge flooding into consciousness unrestrained. Visions surged forth, endless duels, births of stars, collapse of realms, all bound by sword Tao. His knees buckled, yet determination anchored him, refusing surrender to overwhelming torrent of revelations. Than Van's sword anchored him, steadying flow, absorbing chaos, refining essence into harmonious resonance. LCCE enchanted softly, weaving protective aura, guiding his mind through tempest of visions. Kwang Nujin unleashed gales, dispersing, destabilizing fragments threatening to overwhelm fragile celestial balance. LC-Haf symbols encircled obelisk, forming barrier to filter destructive echoes into manageable streams. Slowly, Turndipe stabilized, standing upright, his eyes burning with newfound divine comprehension. He whispered softly, "Sword is not weapon, nor path alone, it is the breath of existence." In that moment, obelisk responded, shining brilliantly, resonating harmoniously with declaration of truth. Pillar's energy collapsed inward, transforming into radiant ki floating above his extended steady palm. Ki glowed like dawn, promising passage into deeper mysteries hidden beyond this heavenly origin. Kwang Nujin bowed head respectfully. "That is proof. You have transcended mortal sword comprehension." LCCEN clasped her hands, heart swelling with pride at his courage and perseverance. LC-Hop's voice trembled. "You have touched essence only ancient founders barely comprehended fully." Ki pulsed once, releasing wave of serenity blanketing them, healing lingering wounds completely. Heavenly Mountain quieted, as if domain itself acknowledged rightful inheritor of its sacred legacy. Constellations dimmed respectfully, then aligned, forming paths stretching endlessly beyond shimmering firmament. Rivers of light merged into single luminous current, opening gateway to higher undiscovered realms. Turndipe clenched fist, holding sword tightly, eyes fixed upon destiny awaiting across luminous passage. He turned to companions, voice steady, "We have come far, yet journey is just beginning." Together they nodded, spirits aligned, stepping forward toward radiant gateway of unknown boundless possibilities. Each footstep echoed louder, merging with heartbeat of universe, signaling arrival of chosen seekers. Passage expanded, swallowing them gently, dissolving barriers of past and present into seamless eternity. Behind, heavenly origin faded into silence, preserving memory of challengers within eternal sword symphony. Ahead stretched brilliance, promise of trials beyond comprehension, where gods themselves once faltered. Turndipe whispered, "Beyond swords lies Tao eternal today, we stride one step closer. His words carried through void, etched into currents, resonating across endless planes of existence. Companions followed closely, unwavering faith shielding them from doubt, carrying unity as greatest weapon. Gateway closed behind, sealing destiny, leaving silence where stars resumed eternal rhythmic dance. Before them unfolded limitless expanse, filled with mysteries awaiting those daring enough to ascend. Their figures vanished into radiance, beginning next chapter of journey where swords transcend beyond heavens.